Every meaningful story from ancient myths to modern movies reveals a deep truth about human nature. We are inclined to imitate, to rivalry, and to sacrifice others to save ourselves. In his 1999 book, I See Satan Fall Like Lightning, Rene Girard demonstrates that Christianity is unique from all other religions in that it exposes these base aspects of humanity. Girard's view of humanity centers on the idea of mimesis. Mimesis comes from the Greek word mimestai, which means to imitate. Mimesis describes a desire that comes into being through the imitation of others. Girard describes desire as a triangular relationship. The people we imitate become our models of desire, and that we come to desire what they desire. This is why corporations are so intent on having celebrity endorsements. We are more likely to desire what a celebrity desires in an ad because we want to be like that celebrity. The subject will imitate its model and desiring the object that the model desires, and simultaneously, the model will be reaffirmed in the value of the object it desires by the imitation of the subject. This dynamic is evident in the fall, when Eve imitates the serpent's desire to be like God. When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. The Hebrew word translated as desire is the same word translated as covet in the 10th commandment. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor his male servant, nor his female servant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is your neighbor's. The 10th commandment is distinguished from the 9 others in that it forbids a desire. Before rejecting this commandment as an excess of a totalitarian God, you should ask, what would be the result of unrestrained desire? Plato considers this in the Republic when he writes about what it would be like for one to own the ring of Giygas, a ring which is said to turn the user invisible. Plato writes that, no man would keep his hands off what was not his own, when he could safely take what he liked out of the market, or go into houses and lie with anyone at his pleasure, or kill, or release from prison whom he would, and in all respects be like a god among men. In essence, Plato argues that if one has unrestrained desire, they will quickly become a slave to their appetites. Similarly, Girard asserts that the result would be what the 17th century political philosopher Thomas Hobbes describes as the war of all against all, a state of total chaos and conflict. The objective of the 10th commandment is to prevent internal strife that results from the rivalries created by mimetic desire. Reciprocal escalation and one-upmanship are characteristic of these rivalries. The genius of the 10th commandment is that it recognizes desire results from a third party and not the intrinsic value of the object itself.
The last of, at least this version of the Ten Commandments, is also sometimes famous by its number 10. It forbids the coveting of your neighbor's or thy neighbor's goods. These to include his ox, his ass, his wife. I think there may be 3 thinkable objections here. First and most obvious, it considers the female of the human species to be equivalent to the chattel.
Wrong.
Second, by way of objection, it's the only commandment that punishes thought.
Wrong. Bruh.
Here you're not forbidden to do anything. You're forbidden to think evil about something. And third, the attempt to suppress an instinct, a desire that must have been put by God into us in the first place.
Bruh.
Otherwise, how would we know?
The Decalogue first presents the consequences, murder, adultery, stealing, bearing false witness, prior to the cause, our desire for what our neighbor has. Understanding mimetic desire is fundamental to understanding the philosophy and anthropology of Rene Girard. A classic example of mimetic desire is a man whose desire for his wife, which diminished over time, is rekindled upon encountering another man who desires his wife. While untroubled possession weakens desire, the presence of a rival reinforces it in an escalatory relationship. Girard leaves a stark warning when he writes that desire conceals the idolization of the neighbor. The idolatry is necessarily associated with the idolization of ourselves. The more desperately we seek to worship ourselves and be good individualists, the more compelled we are to worship our rivals in a cult that turns to hatred. So how as Christians can we follow and imitate Christ in a way that is not rivalrous? As Jesus is God incarnate, his desire is always to do the will of his Father in heaven. He invites us to share in this desire. We imitate him as he imitates the Father. Jesus is a good model because neither he nor the Father desire egotistically. That you may be sons of your Father in heaven, for he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. God's generosity is not transactional, which is why it protects us from the trap of mimetic rivalries. Humans are mimetic creatures, and we therefore have no choice but to imitate, which is why choosing a model is so important, and the only model worth choosing is Jesus. For Girard, the Greek word scandalon designates the model which traps us in mimetic conflict. Let's see how this word is used in Scripture. Woe to the world because of offenses, for offenses must come, but woe to that man by whom the offense comes. If your hand or foot causes you to sin, cut it off and cast it from you. It is better for you to enter life lame or maimed, rather than having 2 hands or 2 feet, to be cast into the everlasting fire. And if your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out and cast it from you. It is better for you to enter into life with 1 eye, rather than having 2 eyes, to be cast into hellfire. And whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck, and he were drowned in the depth of the sea. The word translated as temptation is scandalon, which means stumbling block. Likewise, the word translated as sin is the verb form of scandalon, scandalizen, which translates to cause to stumble. Scandalon is the origin of the English word scandal. The Oxford Languages definition of scandal is an action or event regarded as morally or legally wrong and causing general public outrage. The modern definition has replaced the spiritual harm of scandal with the social unrest caused by it. According to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 2284, scandal is an attitude or behavior which leads another to do evil. The person who gives scandal becomes his neighbor's tempter. He damages virtue and integrity. He may even draw his brother into spiritual death. Scandal is a grave offense if by deed or omission another is deliberately led into a grave offense. An example of the collective pressure of scandal and mimetic desire is the threefold denial of Peter. And when they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to them, "All of you will be made to stumble because of me this night, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I have been raised, I will go before you to Galilee." Peter answered and said to him, "Even if all are made to stumble because of you, I will never be made to stumble." Jesus said to him, "Assuredly, I say to you that this night, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, "Even if I have to die with you, I will not deny you." And so said all the disciples. Of course, Jesus' prediction comes true, leaving us wondering how Peter could have betrayed Jesus after being explicitly warned he would. It's common for people to characterize Peter as particularly impressionable, impulsive, and even dull. However, this tendency to psychologize Peter is the same sin of the Pharisees. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you build the tombs of the prophets and adorn the monuments of the righteous, and say, if we had lived in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. Therefore, you are witnesses against yourselves that you are sons of those who murdered the prophets. Peter fell into the mimetic spiral of collective violence. The mob becomes the model that Peter imitates. Certainly, other factors like cowardice play a role, but one should not underestimate the power of mobs to draw in bystanders and turn them into agitators. Girard writes, "The children repeat the crimes of their father precisely because they believe they are morally superior to them. The resistance brings about the reenactment." Girard sees the crucifixion as the ultimate scandal. Even Jesus says, "All of you will be made to stumble because of me this night, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered." The more scandalous the scandal, the greater the resolution. If the scandalized didn't organize against a single victim, the community would be annihilated in the war of all against all. This is where we get the single victim mechanism, the means by which the outrage of the community is collectivized against a single victim. The death of the prophets, which are typological of the crucifixion, are examples of the single victim mechanism. But where does this evil originate?
These living mystery guys are the hardest motherfuckers out there.
I recommend doing two things to save the planet: eat bugs and watch Living Mystery.
Parked up outside in the